The trade we'd all been waiting for finally happened, and now it's time to figure out if it was really worth it for the Clippers. Adding another major talent to a star-studded lineup would seem like a great idea on paper, but let's examine what they're doing on offense to figure out if James Harden can fit into their existing framework. Right off the bat, the first thing you'll notice about the Clippers' offense is how little passing and movement they get in the half court. And when you have two guys like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on your team, it makes sense to get them the rock and let them cook on their own. These two are some of the best at creating their own shots and, more importantly, knocking them down even when the sliders are set to Hall of Fame. So, the rest of the Clippers roster should be extremely used to seeing James Harden do the same exact thing when he's out there. And the idea is that each of these three guys have enough gravity to open up space and make these isolations even easier. The problem with running an ISO-heavy offense is that you must have maximum spacing around these guys. And what the Clippers were already seeing was a big issue. With Russell Westbrook out there, his man was ignoring him to get in the way and make it harder for PG and Kawhi. Here are just a couple of examples of what happens to an offense when you have someone with zero gravity out there. First off, they'll put their center on him so he can roam the paint and help everybody else very easily. And if you can force a switch, that's okay, but Russ would then wander to the block where his man can ignore him and get in the way of the ISO, and Russ is also in the way of the pass to the open shooter in the corner, making this shot a lot harder than it needed to be. Here he is again not spotting up on the weak side, which wouldn't matter anyway because his man wouldn't follow him. Instead, going down to the baseline and allowing Max Christie to ignore him and help contest this shot into a wild miss. At least Russ got the rebound, but instead of turning this into a little baseline jumper, he brings it back out before trying a one-footed, awkward, completely contested floater on the way down that bricks off the rim. Their offense was littered with examples of his man ignoring him like this. And we know that it will only get worse when teams have a week to prepare and practice for it in the playoffs. So it would make sense to upgrade this position with a player who certainly commands plenty of gravity of his own. It's not hard to conceive of a balanced offense where each of the three get to eat with their own isolations while helping each other with spacing and making their shots a little easier. You can see how KD had good spacing with Harden on the weak side, pulling his man out of the lane. With KD attacking out of the corner, Harden's man is above the three-point line, allowing plenty of space for Durant to go to work. It would be easy to imagine Kawhi and PG doing similar things, as their games are both very similar to Durant's. And the same thing works for Harden, as he should get plenty of space alongside these two to get to the rim and finish through contact, or drawing one extra defender and finding the open man for easy shots. And if he's finding George or Leonard, then it doesn't matter if the pass creates the shot or simply an advantage for them to attack for all manner of elite shot making. I did identify a couple of sets that I like that should work well with the addition of Harden. Harden has never been a guy to catch the ball at the elbow, but this would be a great opportunity since the pressure on the defense this close to the basket would be incredibly profound. They rub PG off the back screen first, and if that's not open, it flows into a pin down for Kawhi on the weak side. The Zubats roll is also an option, but if the big doesn't step up on the curl, Kawhi is hitting this in his sleep. Here it is again, and we get to see the progression with Paul George creating flex action for Kawhi, who can choose either screen to cut off of. While this action isn't great for spacing, it does open up an ISO opportunity for Harden near the elbow, and defenses would struggle to stop it. I am intrigued by this version of Spain pick and roll since you could put Harden in a number of places. They could stretch the defense big time with PG in the right corner and Harden in the left and let Kawhi be the ball handler. And if nothing is there, it flows to Harden coming out of the corner and getting to the bucket where he'd either get a good shot or set up a teammate like Powell did here. Here's a nice high post split where you can plug and play any of their top three into each position for great results. The first screen is a flare for PG for a corner three. Then imagine Harden setting this back screen before coming to Plumlee for the handoff. Harden's man would have to either switch or step over to Kawhi cutting for a beat, and Harden should have a step on his man coming around for the pass. The problem is, Russ gets ignored as his man gets in the way of Kawhi's post-up, but the personnel spacing is still there to generate a great look for George in the corner. I would normally say an ISO-heavy offense isn't built to win in the playoffs, but having these three guys specifically makes me think it could work if Harden can balance this with his supreme facilitator role we've seen in years past. Getting a look at them in person might be the best way to figure it all out, and that's why you need to download SeatGeek, the best app to find tickets to any sporting event, concert, or the theater. With just a few taps, SeatGeek will scour the internet for the best deals out there, giving them a grade so you know what kind of value you're getting. They're rated #1 on Trustpilot amongst all major ticketers, so you can feel secure that your tickets are legit. Best of all, you can save $20 off your first purchase by using my code BBALL. So head over to SeatGeek now and you can enjoy all your favorite NBA teams live and in person. Both Kawhi and PG love coming off of pin downs on the right side, so Tyronn Lue designed this double pin. You can see how Russ's man is ignoring him, and their solution is to cut Russ through. But Harden could just space to the wing and either get the kick for an open three or allow Kawhi the freedom to get into his pull-up game at the elbow. I like this floppy pinch set as Paul George sets the slice screen to the block before rising up to the pinch post area for the catch. While the lane gets clogged right away, PG does have the whole right side to work with and eventually demonstrates why he's so good in the mid-range. We got some triangle offense action with center opposite after the pinch post feed, and I always love it when one of your main weapons screens for a role player, as Zubac comes off the cross screen by PG, and imagine Harden controlling the offense from that elbow, where he can either find the pass inside for the nice jump hook or find any other teammate for an open shot. When I caught this set, I almost choked on my drink, as Lue has literally installed the set from the 90s. This was an old school floppy for PG who would curl around the Kawhi screen on the left side before looping back around for a double pin on the right. Almost everyone is cramped in the lane at this point as Kawhi does a decidedly old school turnaround fadeaway. I don't even know what to make of this since it's such a departure from the modern game, but hey, it's like visiting your favorite museum. If we're looking at their defense, then Harden doesn't necessarily help them much at all since he's not a playmaker on that end. But they do have two premier wing defenders who we know will make defensive plays when they matter. Zubac is a solid anchor and rebounder when he's in there, and Powell and Mann also provide great energy, so I don't think this will be a huge issue in an era where scoring is king. We also know Lue loves to go small ball and would play Nicholas Batum at center. Why not try Harden down there in a lineup that would have him alongside PG, Kawhi, Powell, and Mann? Which brings up our next segment, what to do with Russell Westbrook. If you were pondering why the Clippers felt the need to make this trade now, it had to be because they were poring over the footage of the first 5 games, knowing that this is their last shot at making the PG-Kawhi combo work. And what we saw from Russ were the kind of plays that would send up a big red flag in terms of predicting playoff performance. Even though Russ started out shooting very well from the field and the three-point line, if we go through some of the miscues quickly, I think it will become painfully obvious that they needed to, 1, upgrade the position immediately if they want to go deep in the playoffs, and 2, limit Russ's minutes to the point where he should come off the bench, where I feel he could be the best version of himself against second units. You can divide his turnovers into 2 distinct categories, passing and dribbling. Each of them with their own entertainment value, but also cringe factor, as you realize you cannot afford to have a player playing heavy minutes that commits these types of doozies multiple times a game. This one was hilarious, as he inbounds the ball under his own basket and somehow passes it off the back of the head of the opposing center, and I love his reaction too. He's always struggled with passing accuracy, as he throws this way off target on the Kawhi Leonard curl, and it was an interesting pairing with the same play when he does make the pass properly, but then blows the off-foot layup. Then, dribbling miscues are the ones that are even more head-scratching, as he just loses the ball very often. These can happen suddenly with a quick deflection by the defender when he doesn't protect the ball in close quarters, or in the open court when he telegraphs the move he's going to make and the ball gets deflected, or he just drops it out of bounds when he gets too close to that pesky sideline. I felt compelled to cover this part of the Clippers game to again accentuate how imperative it was for the Clippers to make a move if they wanted to make that deep run in the playoffs, especially because his drives to the rim can often end up a lot like turnovers as he gets into random and awkward positions with little hope of exhibiting enough touch to get these close-range shots to go in. While he started out hot from behind the line, a regression to the mean is no doubt going to happen, and we're already seeing evidence with not just bad misses, but wide open bad misses when the defense ignores him and celebrate when he obliges. D'Lo really ignores him to hang out near the top and completely blow up what would have been a wide open pick and pop for a good shooter in Bones Highland, and no one is surprised Russ doesn't make them pay. And this shot to tie the game at the buzzer doesn't always go in from even the greatest of players, but at least you like to see the ball hit the rim. If we look at how Harden and Russ work together in Houston with the same lack of gravity, there is a lot of promise if they can maintain that same chemistry. You can see how teams would just ignore Russ to load up on Harden, and when Russ started attacking on the catch and not letting the defense catch up, this became a real offensive weapon for those Rockets teams. Now you can imagine two other players on the court that would also lure Russ's man to them. I suspect the Clippers are going to find a lot of success on these types of openings. Overall, are the Clippers better? Yes. The pieces they gave up weren't vital, and they've now added a potent offensive weapon whom they can cover defensively for with very good role players around him. If they bring Russ off the bench and play him about 26 minutes a game, they should be a very tough team that can compete with just about anybody in the West. But they don't have a ton of time to gel, and while I think this team could get into the second round easily and be a very tough out in 7 games, I just don't know if they've got enough to get to the conference finals or beyond.